What's up, dudes? HW here. How you doing? It's a beautiful, beautiful morning over in Nashville today. We're talking about Dumble. I saw the Dumble people, the Dumble gents, the Dumble guys, the Dumblies. I don't know. What are we going to call them now? The people at Dumble, the Dumblers. I saw them at NAMM, and at first I was like, what is this? And I even said to a guy next to me, I said, hey, who is this? And he was like, Dumble? I was like, yeah, but like, I know it's Dumble, but who is it? And he's like, what do you mean? Like, it's Dumble. You don't Dumble Amps? I was like, I know, but who? Who is doing this? He's like, you don't know what a Dumble is? I was like, no, bro, Howard is dead. Howard Alexander Dumble passed away. Who's making these amps? Who is this new Dumble group? And I had an opportunity to speak with these guys, and one of them took a chance to speak with me. I had the chance to speak with one of them. He took the opportunity to. I had the opportunity to speak with him. That's what I'm trying to say, and I appreciate him taking the time. And talked to them at NAMM, and obviously, you know, it was hard to get in that room and play some amps. I was waiting, and they had some other people in there, and I was like, I'll come back, and I didn't really go back. But anyway. You know, man, I was talking to them, and, you know, what I heard from them was like, hey, we really want to preserve the legacy, and we really want to make like a place for owners to protect the name, and so that other people in the trades don't just start using the name all over the place, start making Dumble amps, start making Dumble clones. I mean, clones are fine, but, you know, labeling them Dumble or, you know, clones, replicas in the I guess is maybe the term we would use, a replica. We say clones to mean stuff that like kind of cops the sound and has a different name. But I think replica, like the Durig replica of the Les Paul that like Slash played, you know, I guess replica is the term now. And they were kind of saying, look, not only do we want to preserve the name and like protect the integrity of like having a real Dumble, but we want a place where Dumble owners can confidently get their amps serviced because they need servicing. And it's kind of like, who do you know? Who do you trust? What do you do? And that's interesting to me because that's something Dumble owners have not had for a long time. Even when Howard was alive, it didn't just because you owned one of his amps, it wasn't for certain that he was going to be willing to fix it. There was a lot of cases of people not getting their amps back for a long time. And then famously, there was this case with, you know, I think it's all public knowledge, you know, now everybody knows that stuff. But like, you know, Eric brought a Dumble in there and I guess just wanted one or two things done to it. And it was taken upon himself to sort of, you know, Howard would do what he wanted to the amps, whether you wanted it done or not. And so, you know, I think that's a story that's made its way around the guitar world. And so, to my knowledge, towards the end of Howard's life, the only amps he was working on was stuff that belonged to Kenny Wayne Shepherd. And the hack, if you ever find a Kenny Wayne Shepherd owned anything, as long as it wasn't something that like Kenny owned a long, long time ago and never used again, it probably was serviced and modified by Dumble. And I don't know how many of those amps Kenny would sell now, because they're probably worth a ton more because of his name and Howard's name and Howard not being here anymore. But anyway, I started talking to these guys, and my first question was, so who's this group, you know? And he was like, well, it's this guy and this guy. They got together and formed this group, and there's some other people involved. And, you know, they went to the estate, and I guess they purchased the rights to use the name. I'm guessing the estate still has some level of ownership. There's some level of equity ownership because they had all the amps that seemed to belong to Howard, and that makes me think that they didn't pay cash for all of them. I feel like the reason I say that is I feel like a lot of those amps would have gone a lot higher at auction probably than someone coming in, buying them all at once and starting a business with them would do. So I would imagine those amps are, maybe technically still owned by the estate, maybe owned by the company, maybe part of the company's owned by the estate. I mean, who knows? I just really don't know anything about that. But, I asked who is building the amps now. Like, for example, they told me there will be some new amps. And by the way, I understand that, and that's good. I don't think, they have to build amps, right? One of the things that's come up in some discussion about this is to have a trademark, to hold a trademark, you have to be involved in the business of doing that thing. If you're not in the business if you're not participating in the trade for which the mark is protected, someone can challenge your trademark and you can lose it. So you can lose the rights to it, or the protection that it would be afforded you. And then at that point, anybody could use it. And that's the same thing as you see with patents, or you see that with the shape of the Strat in the United States or the shape of the Les Paul in Japan. Anyone can use them because they weren't defended for a while and other people started using them. And you can't put toothpaste back in the tube. You can't go back. So the courts say, and if someone challenges you and says, look, Your Honor, he's not using this trademark as a trademark, well, the courts can also go, you can't do that. Right? You can still maybe own the name if you put it on something else, or maybe, you can still use it, but other people can use it if you're not using it. We're only protecting people involved in the trade with trademarks. And so they have to do some amps. They have to basically sell some amps. Now, what did they tell me about the amps? They said they would be 5-figure amps. Hang on, I'm going to comment on that in a minute. They also had a Dumble that was half finished by Howard Alexander Dumble, and then they had and they finished it, and they had some other amps. I think what they're doing is great. They had a new one and they had an original, and you played them back to back, and supposedly they sounded the same. It's been my experience that you take amps that are pretty close and you play them through the same cabinet and they sound the same. So I kind of think that if you took a real Dumble and you took a clone of a Dumble and you put them through the same cabinet, they would sound the same. I'll tell you, the one Dumble I had my hands on, I actually profiled it for Tonex, Quad Cortex, Kemper, Helix. That'll be out soon. And I had a clone of that exact Dumble sitting right with it because the person I got the Dumble from was the person who also cloned it. And that clone sounded super similar. I could only pick up very minute differences. There were a couple little differences, but very minute. And they were going through the same cabinet. So my experience has been a clone of a Dumble sounds like a Dumble when you put it through the same cabinet. It's technically not a clone of a Dumble, though, but it's not the amp Howard built. I think that's something people are going to have to get by. But we saw with Trainwreck has continued to be a very desirable brand. The ones that Ken Fisher made go for $40,000 and up. The ones that JM, his apprentice guy, or the guy who's there now, John Mark, the ones that he makes, he doesn't make a lot of amps. He has some different designs, meaning they've done the original designs, but they've also done some other ones. His amps are still going for like 8, 9, 10, 12,000. So it's still very exclusive. It's still understood to be a very exclusive and kind of thing. Okay, on to who is, on to who's making it, because I said who's making it, and they said, well, like who's building these? Who built that new amp? And they're like, well, we're not actually going to be, publicly we're not going to say. I think that's a mistake. I really do. I think that as a brand, this is a video just as much for the people at Dumble to intake and hear as much as anybody else. I'm not talking shit about anybody. I'll just tell you this. I got a little background in marketing. I think that you have more authority in the space if you say, this Dumble team that we've assembled, this owner and this owner who's leading the partnership agreement, this team we've built, we are the most committed to preserving the legacy, providing quality servicing, and continuing the legacy. And this team we have gotten together is sort of, a team committed to preserving the excellence, studying the circuits, studying what's been done in real dumbles, and recreating that with accuracy and referencing that against the originals, referencing component types, component style, all of the records that other people don't have, we have here. We have a map. We have the largest brain trust of Dumble knowledge because we are in partnership with the estate, or we purchased all this from the estate, blah, blah, blah. And there we go. The danger with saying we can't tell you who's building it is that eventually that will come out. You'll have an NDA or whatever, but you know what, man? Those things get broken. A rumor will start. Somebody will leave, and they'll start, and they won't break the NDA, and they'll say, "I used to build for a company you've heard of," and people will just put it together. And then at the end of the day, that even becomes a whole thing over if that person does break the NDA, it puts the whole thing of like Dumbles now. What are you going to pursue that guy? Well, you actually, if you did that, you just made that guy famous because now you've doubled down on not only it was at someone we didn't want to tell you about, which implies he has some secret knowledge that you don't. But it also implies that you chasing him means you're protecting something. And so then it would be like, then the focus is removed from the Dumble brand and onto that person or whoever that is. So in my opinion, that's not the way I would handle that question. The way I would handle that question is we actually have put together a team, and it's the expertise of this head of the team, this owner, and these two techs, which includes people, because this is what I was told. Well, it's someone who Howard trusted. I would say, and on this team is this owner, input from the estate, the brain trust of things we've collected in terms of notes, examples that no one else has ever seen, and even people who Howard was recommending people to go get service from on his amps. That starts to be something you can't take apart with one person leaving, a second person leaving. The team is going to need to have rollover in the people who work at a company. So in my opinion, they got to tighten up that answer. So if the Dumble people are out there, I would just humbly suggest, I know it's your first show, you're out there, and I'm not saying you've done anything wrong or anything. I just think that what people are looking for with that answer is they're really looking for this. They're really looking for you to demonstrate, okay, you have the name. Tell me why you have the expertise. Tell me why it's special what you're doing. That's really the question behind who's building this. And I understand why you don't want to be like, well, we partnered with Andy Fuchs. Or well, we got Bill from Sebago Sound, right? Or we got a Gel, Welgen, I get that. Those guys are doing something else, right? I get that you have sort of have a unique vocation now. This Dumble religion has emerged, and you are the priestly class. You know what I'm saying? And I think what people are looking for right now are to go, tell me about what you're doing, because really they want to go, tell me that you're about to make something I really care about that's really special. And like I said, I think in the train wreck style, it's like the amps that Howard built are probably always going to be at a premium to anything else anybody with the name Dumble builds. But that doesn't mean the Dumble brand and this team of people who I do believe, after speaking with them, have very good intentions and are very devoted to this mission. And I'm into it. I'm into it. I'm just going to tell you that. I'm into it. Explain to us how you're going to bring this new thing that hasn't existed because of Dumble's unwillingness to work with people, run a company the way that people would expect, et cetera. Tell us how you're bringing that to people. Tell us how you're going to bring that going forward, and tell us what new things we can expect in terms of what are you discovering with some of the ownership of some of these amps? Some of these amps, we don't even know who owns them exactly. Some of these amps, we don't know what happened to them. We don't know what state they were in. The Stevie's Dumble, is that in the condition it was in when Texas Flood was recorded? Or was it later changed? There was some talk of that, of later changing things. 150 watts, like what's in there? That amp is not well documented in terms of like Steel String Singer number 2 is, right? So, tell us, like, can you make 183 again, but can you make an option where something can change so that it's more like, 187. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's some dumbbells that are very well documented, some that aren't. Tell us what you're discovering. What's the secret mojo that you're discovering that you have in this brain trust that you can sort of bring to the market in a good product, and help us understand why these amps are going to be more special than maybe a lot of the other companies out there that are making dumbbell clones from the knowledge that's out there. Give us a little uncovering of new stuff, in sort of enriching the Dumble brand in that way, but also help us rely on the brain trust that you now have. Tell a little bit of that story. I felt like what I saw at NAMM was a little more on the side of like, hey, we're here. Here's the announcement. Look at all this cool stuff we have. And I think that's good. I really actually think that's a really good first step. I think it's a great first step to not jump out there and go, buy a $50,000 amp from us. Because I think that's going to get met with a lot of resistance. But as someone who, I'll tell you, in 2020, I made some really great investments in the stock market. And I had a lot of paper profits. And there was a moment where I saw a dumbbell for sale. And I still to this day regret not pulling the trigger. Because I had a ton of paper profits. I realized a lot of those profits, and stuff happens. Life goes on. I've had other priorities since then. But there was a moment where I had the cash, and I saw a dumbbell for sale, and I thought, you could liquidate this. You made some money. You could buy that dumbbell. And I hesitated because I wasn't sure if it was the right dumbbell, blah, 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 blah. And the dumbbell prices have just gone insane since then. And I honestly wish I had done it. It's one of my big regrets in the gear world that I didn't at that moment do it. It wasn't the exact dumbbell that I would choose to own if I could own any dumbbell, or from some of the other ones I had seen for sale over the last several years. But it was a dumbbell, and I had the cash, and I thought the price was pretty fair. And they're going for about double what that was now. And that would have been an incredible investment. It might even be going for more. I mean, I hadn't gotten to negotiate with it for anything. And I see what they're asking for some other ones. I don't know. Maybe it's worth more than double now. But now tell someone like me, why? I'm not a person who believes I should spend $30,000 to $50,000 on a new Gibson just because Gibson did a digital scan of Greenie and they did this and they studied it. I don't understand why that would be worth 30 grand or 50 grand. I have no idea. I'm willing to get involved. Like, I'm willing to believe the hype, but you got to tell me, right? And so I'm a person sitting back going, I probably missed my chance to own a real one. Maybe I will one day. But tell me about this 50K one. Tell me about this 30K thing. Tell me about a 12K. Tell me the story here. Make me fall in love so that when I sit down before I even play a note, I already hear the thing in my soul. You know what I mean? You need a little cognitive dissonance to believe any of this stuff, right? So we all got to be a little bit romantic about it. So, yeah, that's what I kind of think about the new Dumble stuff. I thought it was a really good first step, and I'm really excited for where these guys are going because I think overall it just enriches the community. You know what I mean? Anyway, I've lost my light. The sun kind of went down out there. I was trying to do this all with natural light, so I'm probably a little dark for y'all right now. I have been HW.